All right, so this is day 4 of the Russian invasion into Ukraine. And as the situation stands right now, there's been a major escalation of sanctions against Moscow. The European Commission has said that Brussels will be proposing to freeze assets of the Russian central bank. The Western countries are also banishing a number of Russian banks from the SWIFT inter-banking payment system. As the West is targeting Russia with more sanctions, Moscow has ordered for its troops to advance into Ukraine from all directions. There is a blanket curfew that's been imposed in the capital city of Kiev. And according to official figures that have come in, about 198 Ukrainian civilians have lost their lives so far. Meanwhile, in some fresh inputs that have come in, a US official has said that Western nations will quote-unquote hunt down Russian oligarchs, their yachts, their jets, their fancy cars and also their luxury homes. And this has come after the White House, the European Union and other allies have announced a new set of sanctions against Russia. So it is the wee hours of the morning in the Ukrainian capital of Kiev, and the once vibrant European capital is living under a blanket curfew. Residents in Kiev and in many other cities of Ukraine have been asked to stay off from the streets. Some Russian forces have also managed to enter into the city, so anyone on the street is now being assumed as a member of the enemy post certain time in the evening. So this is how the evening, of course, started with a blaring air raid siren. Russian forces have pounded the capital with artillery and other missiles, both ballistic and cruise missiles, in the dead of the night. Streets across Kiev have been empty, in contrast to the columns of vehicles that were choking the roads in recent days. Tens of thousands of residents have managed to flee to the west and continue to do so in the hope of evading the violence that's been unleashed with this Russian onslaught. Meanwhile, a member of the Ukrainian parliament, Lesia Vasilenko, in fact took to Twitter saying that Kiev will be under attack like never before because the Russian troops will hit the city with everything that they've got. The Western leaders have now urged Vladimir Putin to choose the path of diplomacy, but after Kremlin ordered its troops to barge into its neighboring country, diplomacy has clearly taken a back seat. Kiev has maintained that it is always open for a dialogue, but in a statement, the Russian Defense Ministry claims that Ukraine has rejected the negotiation process, after which Moscow is ordered to broaden its offensive from all directions.
Вчера, после заявлений киевского режима о готовности к переговорам, активные боевые действия на основных направлениях операции были приостановлены. После того, как украинская сторона отказалась от переговорного процесса, сегодня всем подразделениям был отдан приказ о развитии наступления на всех направлениях в соответствии с планом проведения операции.
Meanwhile, in the latest statement by the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, is said that presidents of Azerbaijan and Turkey have now organized talks with Russia, and Kiev is ready for these talks.
І президент Ердоган запропонували організувати переговори з Росією. Це можна тільки привітати.
Meanwhile, the far east of Ukraine, in the Donetsk region, parts of which are controlled by the Russian-backed separatists, the tensions started from here, remember. Russia, earlier in the week, recognized Donetsk and Luhansk as independent republics. And there's been fierce fighting between the Ukrainian national troops and the rebels. There's been fresh shelling that has been reported in many of the areas in Donetsk, and many buildings at this point of time have suffered damage because of this latest escalation. It is not clear at this point of time as to how many people have lost their lives in these clashes in eastern Ukraine.
Боротися стільки, скільки потрібно, щоб звільнити нашу країну, якщо діти вже народжуються в укриттях, навіть коли тривають постійно обстріли, то у ворога немає жодного шансу у цій, безперечно, народній війні.
Now, as Russian troops continue to unleash their assault on the Kievan capital and other Ukrainian cities, the West, of course, is slowly beginning to ratchet up its pressure through sanctions on Russia, particularly targeting its economy. Now, in the latest round of sanctions, the Western allies have now agreed on a new list of sanctions against Moscow. The European Union has now proposed banishing a number of Russian banks from the SWIFT interbank transfer system. With this, the West, of course, seeks to ensure that these Russian banks get disconnected from the international financial system. Now, the allies have also agreed to impose restrictive measures to prevent the Russian central bank from deploying its international reserves. Adding on to this, the affluent Russians connected to Vladimir Putin's government will also no longer be able to use the golden passport system to obtain a European citizenship. Now, speaking in Brussels, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has said that EU and other Western powers, including the United States and the United Kingdom, are considering to move to crippling President Vladimir Putin's war machine.
As Russian forces unleash their assault on Kiev and other Ukrainian cities, we are resolved to continue imposing massive costs on Russia, costs that will further isolate Russia from the international financial system and our economies. In coordination with President Biden, President Macron, Bundeskanzler Scholz and Prime Minister Draghi, as well as Prime Minister Trudeau and Prime Minister Johnson, we considered a significant tightening of our international response. The European Union and its partners are working to cripple Putin's ability to finance his war machine.
Meanwhile, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has said that Moscow is, of course, taking up immediate measures to try and mitigate the damage from the West-imposed financial sanctions. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said on Saturday that he has asked the United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres to strip Russia of its vote at the UN Security Council as punishment for invading into Ukraine. And this comes a day after Russia used its veto power to reject a UN Security Council draft resolution that sought to condemn it for its invasion into Ukraine. Now, Russia currently holds the presidency of the rotating Security Council presidency and is likely to face another similar vote at the UNGA. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.